Okay. Hello. Welcome. So, hi.
Hello.
How are you?
I am really good. I'm really excited about this conversation. It's so nice to see you, through this, I know, but it's still great to see you
Nice
and
to
meet
meet
you.
you. Sort of meet you. This is Remona Aly, who's an incredibly accomplished person in the world of faith, of intrafaith and interfaith dialogue. Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm a journalist and a broadcaster, and my interest is on faith and lifestyle and identity, and I've written for various platforms like The Guardian, and also on Radio 4 and Radio 2, and just exploring faith in a really lived, authentic, nuanced and fun way, I hope.
Right, I've seen some of your material. It all looks very fun and very enlightening. So one of the things which I feel, look, I'm an Orthodox woman, and I certainly see myself in this space of like Orthodox female leadership, which is certainly a place that's incredibly political, often controversial. People have very strong opinions about, and to me it seems a pity, because I think there's something so personal that we get beyond the politics and just talk about the people. It's really powerful. And I think that I don't know, do you feel the same way in terms of your role as a woman in the Muslim community?
There's always that burden of representation, isn't there? When you're kind of an ambassador of faith, but at the same time you're open to critique and to scrutiny. But like you said so perfectly, it is about being personal, and you need to have that connection with people. That's the most important thing, because you need to resonate, and so many people will come to you and go, oh my god, I feel exactly the same way, because faith isn't something that's just on the pages of a textbook. It's a lived experience, isn't it? And so we're always questioning and critiquing our faith and our relationship with our spirituality and our creator. So all of that needs to be authentic and real, and raw and genuine. So
often I get this like incredulous response of like, are you really an empowered woman if you subscribe to a religious doctrine which was written by men?
Absolutely. Yep. I completely relate to that.
Right.
Yeah. And a lot of people say, how can you be a feminist and be a Muslim, or how can you wear this on your head and claim women's rights? So there's kind of like this paradox that people seem to think, but they think that feminism or faith is something that's monolithic, when it's not. It's just so dynamic and so diverse, and that's why we need all these different voices.
Right, absolutely. Well, one of the things that for me has been so fascinating is during the coronavirus lockdown, I think that there's been a breakdown in a lot of those barriers in terms of opportunities for women. That in certain areas, and as I said, I really do prescribe to Jewish law as an Orthodox woman, but there are a lot of areas where women don't have access simply because of cultural barriers or logistical barriers, and not because something is religiously forbidden. And seeing the whole, the whole lockdown happen has suddenly transported the community to a space where women have access in many ways. Have you felt the same thing in your community?
I definitely have, and really what you're saying is resonating with me about us reclaiming those kind of divine mandates, things that have been taken away from us over time, culturally or through kind of toxic patriarchy. So we're kind of reclaiming those things now. We're actually going back to our traditions. That's what I feel. I'm going back to my traditions. I'm not doing anything new. So the whole lockdown is in a way stripping it back to the core and going back to what we were really all about, even though it seems radical that suddenly, like, access, all the barriers have come down, access is now totally open. It's like it's been COVID, like this whole crisis has been an equalizer almost with online access to our faith and our spirituality and the way we express it. So in a way it's kind of democratized it more.
Totally. And I love the way you separated that list, because I feel like on the one hand there's the educational space of like the classes and for example, one of the festivals that we celebrate is Shavuot. We celebrate the receiving of the Bible, and it happened a couple of weeks ago. And there's a custom to stay up all night and learn and study Torah all night. And my kids came home with a little book that said, the fathers have a custom to stay up all night. And I said to my kids, the mothers could also, but often the women don't, simply because someone's got to be home with children or with family. And therefore often they feel like they have less opportunity simply as a logistical, technicality. And because of lockdown, the learning was not happening in synagogues; it was happening in people's homes. So before the festival, people got emailed, classes and insights and things to print and discuss with your family and games. And suddenly, the women could also, spend the night learning and studying, which was incredible. And I think it was for many women was the
That's
first
so
time.
brilliant, and it's like it's a fuller relationship.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry.
The same thing I think with go ahead.
No, please go ahead. It's so interesting to hear about it, and also from the Jewish perspective, and just kind of seeing what the parallels are.
Well, I know that you guys had Ramadan in lockdown, which must have been a very strange experience.
Yeah, that was a really bizarre kind of Ramadan, the first ever I've experienced that any of us have. And obviously all the mosques were closed, and Ramadan is so important to our notion of prayer, and we have extra prayers in Ramadan, and there's the night prayers, and everyone goes to the mosque, or mostly everyone can go to the mosque and do kind of like an hour and a half extra night prayers, and that was all taken away. But people didn't realize that actually women didn't always have that anyway in the first place. So that was a privilege in itself, that you could go to the mosque and do those prayers. Because in the UK, like nearly a third of the mosques here don't have a space for women. And that's because of various reasons. Like there are cultural reasons, like a lot of people came over from South Asia, established the mosques, and in South Asia they don't have a place for women. Women don't go to the mosque. Whereas traditionally in Islam, right at the beginning, the first mosque it was a space for everyone. It was a space for community. So it wasn't like there were separate places for men and women. They were all in one big space together. And over time, that's all been, there have been barriers that have been built, and often women are put in smaller areas, confined, restricted, sometimes dungeon-like, like in a basement. So it's almost like, with the mosques being locked down, the men have got a taste of what it's been like for women for centuries, where you just can't go to the mosque. So right. I'm hoping that kind of nurtures some kind of sense of empathy, that, it's kind of equalized us all, and now people know how it feels to be denied access.
Right, it's amazing. There's so much overlap. We have, I think, in the synagogues, often the women sit in the balcony, which I try not to pray in shuls where I'm in the balcony in synagogues, because I just feel like it's then I become a spectator of the service as opposed to a participant. Whereas if some other synagogues have side by side, and then you feel like you're praying with the community, you're part of the community, which is incredible. But even so, there's this, I'm sure there's this, like, there's in Orthodoxy, there's a rule, I guess, a law that 10 men make a quorum who pray together, called a minyan. And since lockdown, there haven't been such a thing. And one of my friends wrote an article called "We're All Women Today," because they really get a sense of that, and sense of the struggle and the challenges. And at the same time, it was an opportunity. It was incredible. With our first weekend on lockdown, we set up a little mini synagogue in our dining room, and we put the teddy bears on the boys' side with my husband, and my girls on the other side with the dollies, and we kind of like made this little. And it's amazing to bring prayer into the home. We've had so much more praying done in our house, and singing, and really, my kids have prayed in with their father, which they haven't done for a very long time, simply because we were in the home. But what's the story with praying and Ramadan in terms of now transporting that mosque experience to people's houses? How's that been?
Well, so it's been varied. So there are many people pray together anyway as a family, when they're at home, like, when all my family are over, we all pray together. So in a sense, the mosque is anywhere. It can be anywhere that you make it. Like, the world is meant to be a mosque to you. So in that sense, it hasn't changed. But as you've said, it's brought people together more. They're praying together as a family a lot more, because, people aren't kind of separating, going to the mosque. Like, sometimes the men will go to the women or stay at home. Not often. But I in Ramadan, I normally go to the mosque for night prayers. I just got a message saying my internet connection is unstable. I hope it's all right. Yeah. But, interestingly, because people couldn't go to the mosque, people were kind of saying, okay, let's do some reminders. Let's do Friday reminders. Instead of the Friday prayers, they had a reminder. So everyone was logging on, listening to the Friday reminder. And I don't go to Friday prayers so much, but it was an opportunity to listen to those Friday sermons. And another thing that happened during Ramadan was, it's not a popular opinion, but it is a minority opinion, that you can follow an imam digitally and pray the night prayers behind him in a way. And I had friends who were doing that. And these friends, female friends, who don't go to the mosque because safety issues, it's quite late in the night, and also it's a struggle to get there. They were doing it every single night with him, praying those extra prayers. And they said it's the most spiritual Ramadan they've ever had. So it's kind of revolutionized our faith engagement. And not only women, also, everyone, like people who were disabled could join the prayers. And, some people who felt anxious about going to these kind of traditional institutions, they don't feel like they're religious enough. All of that melted away, and they could just pray and just really be an authentic version of who they were, and an authentic version of their faith, express that authentically. So that was really interesting to see during Ramadan.
Awesome. Yeah, also, I can't believe how much is online. That suddenly, because now it's become this global community, you want to take a class in Australia with a scholar who only speaks to whoever, you got it. You just tap in the Zoom password and you're in, which is incredible, because a lot of these people are not accessible, not just to women, but to to different groups. And suddenly we have access, and we can study, and we can learn, and people are doing it. There were like these packed classes of hundreds of people all studying and learning more about their faith, which is unbelievable.
Yeah, the world became a classroom. So I've been to courses where, you get like a handful, maybe about 100 students maximum or something in the classroom. But I attended a Journey Through the Quran course during Ramadan. So it was like every weekend. And obviously everyone's in lockdown. So they're like, okay, they attended it. Yeah. And it was thousands of people attended it. And people were saying they could directly speak to the scholar in the chat box. And these are women asking questions that they don't normally get their questions answered. Wow. And they were just like, this has really opened up our connection with our scholars and our teachers now. And, normally in a traditional kind of room, like sometimes the women can be a bit further away from the speaker. But this was like, we were face to face, and we were having that direct kind of conversation almost. So it helped. It really helped with people's their identities and their faith experience. It was just extraordinary to see that happen and unfold in front of our eyes.
Right. I think there's also something to be said about the fact that, specifically in times of crisis, people of faith are turning to their faith. So that definitely is part of it. But I do think a part of it is accessibility, and people feeling like they have a way in, and it's not something which is, out of their control, out of their reach, and just beyond them.
Yeah, one of my friends on Facebook was just saying, I've never had this kind of access before, but that's a good thing, and it's a really bad thing as well, because it's great that we're having these spaces that are open to us, but it's also, this time has been such a great revealer of everything that has normally been inaccessible. So we need to think about why have we not been able to access these kind of these teachers, or this kind of prayer, or this worship. We need to rethink a lot of these things now, and kind of, recalibrate and realize, and hopefully this time has been a time of empathy. It's been a time of kind of understanding. And, if we come out of this time and we haven't learned anything, then what was it all for? Right. We need to go forward with new wisdoms.
Yeah, I think that also we've seen how much of a desire there is, just how much interest. When we started lockdown, I know a lot of the, rabbis and rebbitzins and people who are teaching were like, we'll try to do something on Zoom, we'll see who shows up. And there's been consistency, there's been commitment, it's been so inspiring to see how much of a need and the thirst that there is. And I think that we as educators have a responsibility to answer that thirst moving forward, and saying, can we create more opportunities, even if we, do go back.
And you've obviously had lots more reach.
Right. Absolutely. I taught a class, and at the end of the class I said to my husband, I just taught a class to 2,000 people. That's crazy. That's ridiculous. But the other thing I think is also just community, that you would think that it's a time when the community centers are shut down and the places of gathering are shut down, and we're not breaking bread with our, extended families, and we're not, so you would think that that's a time of deep isolation and disconnect, but it's not true. It's been an incredible space of community, which also goes to show that community is not specifically confined to a building. and to a group of people gathered in that building. Whether it's through, like, I don't know, we've had WhatsApp groups that have been created and support that's been given, or phone calls or social distancing walks, whatever it is. I feel so much more connected to the people who I've connected to.
Yeah, that the connection has been phenomenal, even though it hasn't been a physical sense of connection. And I know that the physicality of community, I mean, no one can really undermine that. That is so important and so crucial. But it has opened up the concept of community in such an incredible way. This digital community now, and like the connection I feel with people has been so wonderful, and people have been thinking about others more. They've been more compassionate. You know, I have had more people reach out to me than ever before, because I just want to see how you are, checking up on you, you know, and it's just that sense of just like love has just really come through in this time, which has been beautiful, extraordinary. And that for me is community.
Yes, absolutely. Which, you know, which I think is also, it really, as you said, it creates some sort of democracy in saying, like, we're all, it evens the playing field, that the community is not just the people who are showing up, it's the people who want to be showing up, and for whatever reason are limited in their access and in their ability.
Yeah, and people with children, it's been easier for them because childcare is an issue, you know. So it's like it's parents, it's women, it's the disabled, it's, you know, so many people who are not confident, maybe, or they're not, you know, or
who's scared of being judged.
They're not perceived to be religious. You know, that they're actually, the spirituality is such an incredible and beautiful thing, and everybody, I feel everyone is a spiritual being. Everyone is, you know, whatever they say, and that kind of access now has deepened. It is deepened now, you know, and I hope that in the future it's just going to get better, and people will be able to express themselves more fully and more holistically, with things going in tandem. So you've got the traditional structures at the same time as this kind of, you know, revolutionized digital space as well.
Yeah, what do you think? Do you think the way going forward is going to be to create more digital spaces of religious experience?
I think people are learning, aren't they? This has been such a learning curve for people. Some people, like, I've never heard about Zoom before. They've never like considered doing anything online before. So it would be great if we could have it working in tandem. You know, because we need to give people options. You know, we need to maintain that accessibility at all levels, and just like that equality of learning and of worship, of access to our faith. We need to make faith accessible. That's what faith is about. It's about opening doors and opening hearts.
Right.
So I just think that it's crucial that we rethink. We take this time to rethink, and just hope that things will change for the better.
Yeah, we have our high holidays obviously are coming up in the beginning of September, and I think that we need to partner with, you know, the Muslim community that's been there, done that through Ramadan, and try get some tips on how to create, like you said, and I think the challenge for us has been how to recreate an experience where nobody's going to be experiencing it, because the high holidays are about the synagogue and the sounds and the songs and the tunes, and trying to like be able to give people an experience.
Thinking outside the box has been just brilliant. I've actually seen it in Jewish communities and Muslim communities where, you know, like I had a kosher iftar the other day, and as many people as wanted to they could put on their video screen. So there was like a sense of, okay, we're all kind of together, and you were like looking around the screen, who's in the room, you know, who's in the virtual room. So you've had like virtual mosques, virtual synagogues, virtual iftars, you know, virtual learning spaces, and it's really been incredible. And actually there's more of an interface there now, because like, sometimes you can't really access someone on the other side of the room, but now you can message people, you know, directly or to everybody. So it's been fantastic to see that happen, and I've loved the interface that's happened. The interfaith has been brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's going to be this I would hope, and I would like to see it being a combination of using these virtual spaces, and at the same time reacquiring our homes and our personal spaces as religious spaces, and really kind of bringing it into, whether it's a festival or it's Ramadan or it's our holidays, whatever it is, and really bringing it into my home and making my home that place where I can experience that religious experience, and not just in the typical, religious, the mosque or the synagogue or whatever.
Absolutely, because faith is everywhere. It belongs at home, it belongs in the synagogues and the mosques, it belongs in our hearts. It isn't something that you just kind of go to every week or something. It's all encompassing.
Yeah,
for me,
we have that in common. I think Islam and Judaism really have that in common, in that it's this.
So common. We are the closest in practice and in faith and in worship and in history. It's just, what we can learn from each other is just, brilliant. I'm learning so much from the Jewish communities as well, and like kind of incorporating it as well in my own experience, my own faith experience. So that's the great, it's kind of like this synergy that's happening that is really been taking off during lockdown too. And the relationships that have built up before lockdown, you're seeing it come to fruition during this time as well. So you kind of like calling on each other and having these discussions and just kind of coming together a lot more. It's been beautiful to watch.
Yeah, it's very right. I think it's awesome, and I think it really does. It creates an opportunity to depoliticize the religious experience and personalize it, which is cool.
Absolutely, and reclaim who we are. Reclaim these spaces, like you're saying. The faith is in the house, and like the female scholarship as well. I think that is a really important point about female scholarship. That's why I really admire you. I think about my own faith tradition, and like there's this lost legacy of female scholars. It's kind of been pushed out of the history and the narrative that the men used to travel hundreds of miles to sit at the feet of female scholars, and I'm thinking that I'm hoping that this is now going to come back in some small way. It's something I'm really interested in, just to say how we are, we pass it on. It's like an inheritance that's passed on through women as well as men. So yeah, I think that I hope that that will come home to many of us.
Maybe we'll do a follow up on Muslim and Jewish female scholars in the Middle Ages. That would be fascinating.
That would be great. That would be awesome. I mean, I'm reading this book by a Muslim scholar called Sheikh Akram Nadwi, and he's an Indian scholar, and he has uncovered over 8,000 accounts of female scholars. And I didn't grow up with that, so it's all there. It's just like we're on the tip of it. We need to like explore and just dive deeper.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's awesome. Absolutely. Oh my gosh, there's a lot of throughout the Talmud there's it's brought anecdotally, but these female teachers of Talmud and teachers of Jewish law who were considered the great of their generation. But as you said, sometimes they get overlooked because they're hard. You've got to find them. It's a needle in a haystack, but they should be found, and they should be really praised and taught to people as role models.
And you talk about this. Is it the story of Ruth in for Shavuot?
Yes.
You talk about.
Yes.
I don't know much at all about that. I'd love to know more about that too, and the female prophets as well, Jewish prophets. I would, there is just so much.
What's so fascinating is that in a lot of the female stories I'm not sure. I'm curious about the grammar in Hebrew. The grammar for masculine and feminine are very closely related, and sometimes in the actual Torah text there is the way that the word is written and the way it is pronounced are different. Normally, the way it's written is how you pronounce it, and every now and then there's a word that's written in a funny way, and you still pronounce it according to a tradition of how to pronounce it in the correct way. And often in the stories of these like female protagonists who come up and really take the front center of the stage, the actual text is written as a masculine word, and they, in their behavior, we read it as a feminine word. They're kind of like women stepping up into these very predominantly, traditionally male roles, and they're kind of taking the hold there, which is very interesting.
That is fascinating, and I would love to hear more, because this is an area I'm really exploring right now, about the masculine and the feminine, and the divine feminine, and the sacred feminine. I find that really Shekinah is something I'd really like to explore as well.
Absolutely, yeah. Okay, we have to have a follow-up conversation then. I think this is just the beginning.
Yeah, this has been incredible, so interesting. It's been incredible to listen to your experiences as well, and your insights and wisdom.
Thank you so much for your time.
No, thank you for asking me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. It's been awesome.